Hi, y'all. I am so excited about today's episode. I am talking to Bailey Lavender, who I actually met in December at our Salon Centric team event for the first time. And before I pushed record, I was like, okay, so your last name really is Lavender, right? And she's like, yep, that is what I was born with. I'm like, I'm so jealous, but I'm going to let Bailey like briefly introduce herself and tell you all what we're going to talk about because it's a very like personal topic, and I just want her to be able to like have the first say in what gets put out there on this episode. So, Bailey, do you want to do that really quick?
Sure. Hi, I'm Bailey Lavender. A lot of people know me for my comedy skits that I post online, but very few people have watched the videos about my and my wife's infertility journey. And I really want to dive into that because not many people talk too much about that and what that looks like, especially with someone who looks as healthy as what I do. A lot of people think that it would be easy, and unfortunately, it was not for us. And so I just wanted to dive into that as what we could today.
Yeah, and I think that it's a topic that so many women struggle with, and it's,
Yes.
very very difficult on those women, and I think that just spreading awareness on this topic is it's going to help so many people. So I'm excited to hear about, the
Mhm.
things that you've done so far and the things that you're
Yeah.
looking into doing in the future.
Hmm.
So how long have you and is your wife's name Charlie?
Yes.
Okay. I'm like, I think I remember that. How long have y'all been married?
We've been married since October, actually. We eloped. We have both been previously married and were married for years. And then we got divorced, and both were going through a divorce, which was when we re-met. We knew each other in high school. And then we started dating and finally realized that we didn't want to have the big elaborate wedding like we did the first rounds for both of us. And so we ended up throwing what we called a surprise birthday party. But it was actually a surprise reception where a lot of people at our birthday party found out that it was actually a reception as well. And we got to throw this huge party because both of our birthdays are in October. And it just was like a throw together, all surprise, kind of great time to be able to spend with a lot of our friends and family. And it was really enjoyable.
Yeah, I've been married and divorced before, and I had a wedding, and the next time I get married, I do not want the big wedding.
Nope.
It does.
We looked at the budget and we were like, what is important to us? Important to us is the photography and then the enjoyment of spending time with friends and family and having the party, right?
Mhm.
So why not just focus on doing those? And so that's what we got to do.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I think that, that first time we didn't know any better, but now hindsight's
Hmm.
2020, so we're like focus on what matters.
Yes, exactly.
So, were y'all were ready to start having kids pretty quickly though, like after
Yes.
you got married?
Well, we actually started prior to. So one of the rules was I wanted to wait until we were at least engaged to start trying to have children. And so as soon as we got engaged, I was like, heck, we know we were going to get married eventually. So why not just go ahead and start this process? Because I had tried in my previous marriage and nothing had ever come of it. There was no miscarriage, nothing. And so I was like, well, this might be a little bit more difficult. So we'll go ahead and start the process. While in that, we tried at home first and then eventually got into a doctor's office where we tried for over 6 months in the doctor's office as well. And then found out that it's highly likely that it is not going to work for me unless I do take the IVF route.
Okay. So do they do like how do they know that? Do they run like tests? I really don't know much about it. So I'm like,
Yes.
I told her before we started, I'm like, I'm just gonna ask questions. So if I ask something you don't want to answer, just tell me. But
You're
um
fine.
kind of walk me through the process of like how they test all of those things.
So when you go to the doctor's office first, they're supposed to run a test that's called a baseline test, which is where they go in and they look at your ovaries to figure out if you have cysts or if you have follicles that are the correct size, like eggs that are ready to drop, that will hopefully be inseminated and be able to turn into a baby.
Mhm.
Well, my doctor's office that I had been recommended to did not do that test. The doctor said, listen, you're perfectly healthy. We think that this will be easy. This is a couple $100 of a test to run. I don't see the point in that. Come to find out, that test that was not run was very necessary because they would have found out that I had cysts that they were essentially trying to impregnate because those were blocking my eggs from dropping. And every single month, we were paying thousands of dollars for sperm. that was not going anywhere. It wasn't able to do anything. And every month we would have the blood work drawn. We'd get our hopes up. We would hope and pray that it would work. So, I mean, it's weeks between each test, and then we would start all over again because the last time didn't work. So we got to try another time, and it was just thousands and thousands of dollars down the drain.
How long did that go on though before they figured out they weren't putting the sperm anywhere useful?
6 months.
Oh my gosh. When you were saying that, I was like getting chills because
Mhm.
I have PCOS and it took me literally 20 years. I was on birth control for so long. That's what
Yeah.
they kept putting me on. They don't want to like dive into things.
No.
Like, I mean,
Hmm.
and if that test, like, why wouldn't you start there? You know, that could
Facts.
weigh out so much
Hmm.
other stuff and money. So,
Yeah.
and y'all just lost that money. Like you're not going to get it back.
Never. So they do another test as well, typically to make sure that your fallopian tubes are open. So they do what's called, like, I don't know the technical term, but it's like a dye test, right? So they have an X-ray over your ovaries and they shoot dye into to make sure that both ovaries are open and that your tubes are good to go. Well, they did that test, which is not a painful test. Some people say that it's painful. It was not painful for me. It was just uncomfortable.
Mm,
Um, but they were like, well, since that test came out fine, there obviously are no other issues. They did not take into account that I have been off of birth control since I was 22 years old. I'm almost 30 and never once have had a pregnancy scare. And so I was starting to get very frustrated there for a little bit because we had tried for almost 6 months at home where you get the sperm delivered to the house. And so I was like, well, maybe there's something wrong. And I was hoping that they were going to do all these tests and they kept telling me I didn't need them. Well, that's just going to be a waste of money. And I'm like, but shouldn't I? And the doctor was like, no, it's going to be a waste of money. Don't worry about it. Um, Unlike other couples, well, just because we're LGBTQ does not mean that other couples don't have to go through this. But some other couples are fortunate where their other partner has the baby making juice
yep.
and they don't have to outsource. But
Hmm.
we were spending close to $2,000 a month purely on sperm because you want a certain quality of it and that
Hmm.
are good and that are good swimmers and all that kind of stuff. And so this was racking up a lot of debt. And come to find out, the cysts that I was having were blocking any eggs from being able to drop completely. So, like I said, if I had had that first initial test, they would have been able to know that the follicles that I had were not follicles, that they were cysts, and that they were not shrinking at all.
Oh my
Then
gosh.
eventually they put me on birth control. Oh, I hate birth control.
To shrink them down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I don't know about you, but birth control for me is horrible.
Hmm.
I got extremely paranoid. I got anxious beyond belief. I cried every single day because I did not want to take it. It
Hmm.
made me extremely emotional. Um, and so I had to take it for an entire month. And it was actually the last month that we attempted. And so I took it for an entire month. And then we tried one more time. And that time we had saw that the cyst had shrank significantly. We got good sperm. We did the whole IUI, which was different than IVF. There's
Hmm.
IUI and IVF. IVF, they go in and they take your egg and they go ahead and implant it outside, like in a lab.
Hmm.
In IUI, which is what we were doing, it's similar to like where if you were just to go have sex at home,
Hmm.
they just shoot sperm up at the correct time. You have a shot that they give you to make sure you're dropping your egg at the perfect time, all of this medication that goes into it. And
But like you're doing it in the
yeah,
IUI. Okay.
yeah. And so the last time, a week after we had done the entire test, I guess you could say, we went in to get my blood drawn. And so a week later, after you ovulate, to tell if you're pregnant or not, they take your blood levels and they need it to be over what they say is a 3. And I can't remember what it is that they're testing. But the highest number I had ever gotten was a 4.5. At that time, I was a 16.
Mm.
That time I was extremely hopeful that something was coming out of this time, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
But I had just been through the ringer. They had me on medication. I had like, so just because I take the shot doesn't mean I'm not on other medications to make sure the follicles are good.
Mm-hmm.
So with the amount of medication I was on, my emotions were all over the place, much less the birth control.
Yes.
I was hungry all the time. And I felt like the point that I was trying to do to have a baby was I simply wanted to become a mother. And I knew eventually I wanted to adopt. That was always on the plate. I just also wanted to experience what pregnancy was like.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, you know what? I think after going through all that I went through, this is a little much for me. So we're going to take a break from this. And that's when we started calling adoption clinics around us. That did not go very well. But the fertility stuff, we eventually just put on pause because it got to the point where I felt like a failure. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, my body's not doing what it's supposed to do. Having a period every month, but I'm not doing what, like, it's simply like simple is supposed to just drop an egg and I'm supposed to be able to get pregnant. They tell you when you're in high school, you have sex, you're going to get pregnant. End of story. But that's not how it is, unfortunately, for a
Mm-hmm.
lot of women. And I'd never heard, like, I very rarely heard stories of women going through things like how we were. So I was like, this is rarity. Not many people do this. Something's wrong with me. And
Mm-hmm.
then I started having to really dig into the internet to find other women going through stuff. But this isn't a very normal conversation.
Mm-hmm. But wait, so when you were on that birth control, because that was to shrink the cysts, I know, but like that
Mhm.
also was keeping you from getting, like, you couldn't be on it very long or else you're not going to get
Yeah.
pregnant.
Yeah. That's the crazy part. So we went in that month before, right? And they're like, so your cyst has not shrunk and we cannot inseminate this time, right? And I was beating myself up. But I was like, so now what? And they say you have to go on birth control. And I was like, that seems backsided, right? Like, it doesn't, how is that supposed to help? So they put you on extreme hormonal birth control. And supposedly that is supposed to help. I mean, it did to shrink the cyst. But in the same token, like, how do you know that that's not also affecting the next month when you're trying to get pregnant?
It has to be. That's what I was going to say. Like, I understand birth control helps PCOS, and that's what they keep telling me when I go in for my symptoms is like, take birth
Yeah,
control. And it's like, yes, I get it. It'll help like right now in the moment, immediately help. But what about later? Like your hormones are just
yeah.
shot up, shot down, shot all around.
Hmm.
And then you have all the artificial stuff that you're putting in your body when
That.
you already have hormone imbalances. And it's like, that can't be, it just can't be good. It cannot be good.
Well, have you ever looked at the ingredient list or the warning labels that come with birth control?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's pages.
Yeah. Yeah. And when I was younger, I would just rip open my package and throw them away. And I was like, you know what? I have to take these or else I'll have horrible, symptoms or whatever. Well,
Yeah.
now I feel like finally I've been off of it for probably 7 or 8-ish years. And I still have like,
Hmm.
hormone issues, but they're way better than they were before I started. So I feel like, they could have given you maybe like a diet plan or like foods to
Something.
avoid or foods to eat or given you like other kind of medication that wasn't going to necessarily directly impact the hormones. Like,
Well, so prior to that last month, I had never been on pill birth control.
mhm,
In my early 20s or like 18, I got on the IUD, the Mirena, and I'm not going to say names, but a lot of people I'm very close with, they were also on the Mirena at an early age, and they also have had infertility issues. So I don't know if they correlate or if it just so happens that that's kind of the same thing, but it's weird to me how now later in life these women who are trying to get pregnant now are struggling and
mhm.
have PCOS, infertility issues, all this stuff that I never heard about in my younger years.
No, and I also think it's because now there's with social media, that's the good thing about it. There's so much more like public
Yeah.
information out there with people just sharing their stories, like you were saying, and making more sense of stuff that we just thought,
Mhm.
okay, well, and not that again, I know some people have great experiences with birth control,
Yeah.
but I think each person is so different.
They're different.
And I know there aren't, unlimited amounts of doctors out there, but I wish there were, because it's like we do deserve at the minimum being
Yes.
looked into like an individual, because we are.
hmm You
Simple.
know, one of the craziest things that advice wise, that was given to me from actually, because I was starting to post my infertility journey. And I had so many women reach out and be like, listen, they're going to tell you birth control, but promise you will try castor oil.
Hmm.
And so many recommended that I take patches of castor oil and put them on over top of, like, on my skin, over top of my like ovary area, and use a heating pad every single night. And I was doing that at the same time I was taking this birth control. So I don't know what works better.
Uh-huh. Well, that's a good, and that helps just shrink those cysts.
Mhm.
Yeah, I might try that actually. I know, because when you're trying multiple things at once, you're like, shit, now I have to just keep doing everything. I've done that with like vitamins before. I'm like, gosh, now I'm spending all this money. I don't know what the heck's working.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to know though about like the sperm and like how you know the quality of it, how all that works, because I know that is like I don't know a single thing about
Yeah.
that. And I'm assuming a lot of listeners don't either. So because I do know that my clients and people I know in my life who've had to do IVF, I think it's IVF, like they have to get the sperm to the clinic within so many hours, right?
hmm
So were
Yeah. A
y'all
lot of
picking it up at clinic, or like you said it was coming to your door?
No, so the clinics that you order, or at least that we were ordering from, were not in state. A lot of places, when you were having to get it to the clinic by a certain time, like within a certain time frame, either one, it's coming from your partner that they have to make sure it stays good, or two, because you're about to have to use it and you only have a very short time frame that you can actually get pregnant in. So we actually got recommended, there's a few different really good ones, but we got recommended two or three different online services that are for sperm pretty much. And you can also buy, like, if someone has excess eggs that they already had taken out through IVF and that kind of stuff. But when you go on there, you get to sometimes see adult photos, sometimes it's only baby photos, and sometimes there's no photos at all. But you get to go through this huge like profile. It's almost like a Tinder profile of these
Mhm.
like different men out there, right? And some of them write about their purpose of why they've started this journey is because they want to help LGBTQ or help mothers who are single. Like they're very in depth sometimes. A lot of these clinics, if they don't have pictures of themselves, will tell you what celebrity they extremely look alike, so you can kind
Mhm.
of judge. Because a lot of times I found even straight couples have to sometimes outsource, and they want it to look like their partner, and so that there's
Mhm.
never any question. And so they'll have specifications of, I'm 5'8", I wear this size shoe, I am these are my hobbies I like to do, this is the career path I've gone down. They'll have letters, handwritten letters from the donor for the parent, so that you can see what even their handwriting looks like. The one that we went through, they had personality tests where it got to tell you how they deal with different things in life. So, like, say I want my child to be extremely calm and non-argumentative, because I know I'm argumentative and I don't want to have two argumentative parents. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, balance each other
You
out
can
a little bit.
try, yeah, try to balance it a little bit. You can kind of go in and create those specifications. You can do per race, you can do height. I mean, all sorts of kind of different things on there. But then when you're also choosing, there's different levels of how
Mhm.
good a quality it is, right? Because when they're testing the sperm, they're seeing how fast the swimmers are and how many are alive and good within one vial. Typically, you're wanting over what they call a moat 20. Moat, anything below is typically not as good, or you don't know how many you're getting in it that are alive and good to go because they're frozen.
Mhm.
So if you're the last time we got one, it was over a 12 million good swimmers.
Wow.
Yeah. And then there's some that we got that was under 2 million.
Mhm.
And so, and those were the times that we were like, we don't really need to focus that like too much on spending, because it's more expensive for the higher quality. We're
Mhm.
like, well, no, we'll just spend less, because I mean, it's not going to be that hard to get pregnant, right? So
Mm-hmm.
then we got the worst quality, the less quality. There we go. And we ended up spending more and more every time to get better and better quality, hoping that it would make it a better, what am I trying to say?
Like a better
Like
chance.
that word. Yes, a better chance of getting pregnant at that point.
Okay, so and then when you take it in, so that one's frozen. Yeah, because my clients and stuff that I'm talking about 24 hours, it's not frozen. Like they have to put it on like ice and they're like,
Oh,
we're
yeah.
driving with this sperm in this ice chest right here. I'm like, oh my gosh. Anyways, but yours is frozen. And so then
Yes.
y'all were doing that one at home though. So then do
No,
you just like
so
thaw it out? I mean, how do you
yeah.
do that?
So at home, you just thaw it out, and then you just inseminate, like you get it into a syringe, and you just inseminate right near your cervix as close as possible because you can't go in at home.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But in the doctor's office, they go into your cervix so that it can bypass the portion of your cervix that makes it difficult for the sperm to enter, and it
Uh-huh.
goes directly into your cervix and hopefully straight into your ovaries. But at home, you have that barrier of your cervix, so it's less likely to happen at home than in a doctor's office.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you use the whole entire like 2 million whatever swimmers at once. So, like you don't just like split it up into
Mm-mm.
multiple. You
No.
shoot it all up.
Well, because you have sometimes less than a 24-hour period. And
Okay.
a lot of times, so we were doing the at-home test to see if like I was fertile in that time frame, right?
Yeah.
And come to find out, I did not know this, but come to find out sometimes, even if that test says you are, that right now is the best time, it might be another 24 hours before you're actually fertile or before you're actually ovulating, or you could be at the end of it, and sperm can live inside of you for, I think, it's a couple days. And so
Mm-hmm.
they want, if you can, to get all of it in there as much as possible so that you have as much time frame to work with as possible.
Okay. And then so y'all did that at home, but and you never really did IVF. You decided to take a break before that.
So I have watched many of my like mutuals on social media go through IVF, and I myself have been diagnosed with bipolar 2, and so I watched a lot of their mental health really, really struggle
Mm-hmm.
within the medications that they're put on, with how they're in pain and how they just simply can't do their day-to-day tasks because of the medication. And I was like, listen, I want to be a mother. I don't care how it happens for me, and I
Mm-hmm.
don't need that journey to be my journey because I cannot deal with that kind of emotion. I
Mm-hmm.
can't deal with the medication making me that depressed or anything. I need to make sure I'm remaining as happy and healthy as possible.
Yeah, and it's like the financial stress, just the emotional stress, the physical stress. I mean, it's like all of the stresses in
Mhm.
your body are just heightened. And yeah, it's
Yeah.
a lot. I mean, my clients who have gone through it, sometimes it takes years even.
Yeah. And
And it
sometimes, like, going through all of that, and it's a procedure that they have to put you asleep for. And I'm like, listen, I am kudos to anyone who can go through that because I could not. That is not a journey that I can ever go down. That is too much for me personally. But I've watched videos, and that is a lot on women's bodies.
mhm. No, for sure. And it's expensive.
Extremely expensive.
Like, do you remember like what the pricing of it was compared to like the stuff that you were ordering, like the sperm you were ordering
I was quoted $15,000.
for like one treatment and you
Mhm.
could have to have multiple.
Yeah.
And insurance doesn't pay for it.
So some insurance does. My insurance does not. All of my stuff I had to pay out of pocket. But some people are talking about like get a part-time job at Starbucks or try like going through. I think somebody said Amazon. Like a whole bunch of different places have insurance that will help with that. And a lot of women or husbands or spouses, whoever, they will get a part-time job to pay for their infertility stuff.
I know, and it's crazy that it's that hard to get it paid for because it's
Mhm.
like we pay for insurance. This is a whole other
Yes.
soapbox rant I could do, but we pay for insurance
Mhm.
for reasons when we need it, and
Yes.
that is a reason when we need it. Like we can't help
Mhm.
what our body is doing.
Mhm.
Like, but we want to have children, so it's like I don't understand what, like a lot of people don't even use their insurance policy
That.
at all throughout the year.
Hmm.
But this would really help them and change their whole life and make them moms, which is what
Yeah.
people ultimately want. I just don't get it. But yeah, that's good to know that there are some places that are starting to
Mhm.
pay for that more.
Yeah, I had a ton of people reach out. I could probably go back through my DMs if you want a list of those. Because I had so many people saying, "Hey, if you want something," because I was talking about how expensive it was,
Mm-hmm.
and they were like, "Well, get a part-time job here, there, or wherever," because they will pay because they had either been through it, had a friend, somebody that had been through it, and used that company to help them.
Mm-hmm. So, and then with the adoption, you said that that was like a headache in and of
Yes.
itself.
So, me and my wife, like I said, got married in October, and she and I both have always talked about wanting to adopt. I just simply wanted to experience pregnancy.
Mm-hmm.
But we were like, you know what? Because I'm turning 30, let's start with the pregnancy route, and then the next one we'll adopt, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we eventually wanted to start getting on what that future looks like for us. Do we need to have a whole bunch of studies done and blah blah blah? So we were calling around, and a lot of the adoption clinics here in South Carolina either A, are government funded and they could not tell us no, that they wouldn't work with us, but they would say, they would be very gentle about it. And they're like, listen, so we are religion based. And so we cannot tell you no, but the people who come to our clinics will not choose you. So you're going to waste your money. Um, Also, or B, they were not government funded, so they just said, no, we do not work with LGBTQ couples. So we're like, okay, so then what do we do? So that's when we turned to social media because we're like, can we trust any of these online profiles that are adoption clinics? Like, how do we know? Because I want to see in person. Like, are
Mm-hmm.
you real or are you a fraud?
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, this is our future.
Yeah.
This is a big deal. And so we were told right and left no. And then we started going down. A lot of people recommend to try to go through foster care, right? But the point of foster care is reunification.
That's what I was gonna
And
say.
and I don't feel right about going into foster care and being like, my journey is I want to not keep, but like I want to raise this child.
Yeah.
And I can't go into this knowing that that's what I want if that's not what their needs are.
It's like heartbreaking to, yeah,
Yeah.
to think about because I want to adopt too.
Yeah.
And that was what someone had recommended to me once was like starting out in foster care, but I can't even fathom like, and
Mm-mm.
it's so great that people
Yeah.
can be there for these children who need it. But yeah, it's the goal is to get them back with a parent or a family
Mhm.
member. And my soul just could not take it. Like
No.
could not
Yeah.
take it. It would just
I
be, I
would
can't
love
even
to.
imagine it. Like
Mm-mm.
I just can't. I couldn't even foster a dog, I don't think, because then I would have to give it back. And like you said, like
Exactly.
that's not my goal here.
Exactly. Like I get attached too quickly.
Yeah.
And that is something that I had to really talk to myself and me and my wife had to talk over of like, you know, we may not be this kid's forever home. They may not feel like they want to be here forever and their goal may be wanting to get back home. We may be placed with a child that there is no option for them to get like to go back to their parents and we may have that ability, but we have to be okay with the opposite. And
Hmm.
I was like, I can't. I need to be honest with myself in that. And so that's when we had to realize that we needed to go through and start the process of private adoption because it was not going to happen in the other way for me currently.
And so you did find some like agencies that were
Mhm.
legit.
Yeah, we found I can't remember the name of it currently, but we're on a list with them, and they are very LGBTQ friendly. There is a salon owner actually here in Greenville, South Carolina, and they used this company as well. And so a lot of people have a very negative mindset towards adoption. A lot of them feel like you're quote unquote buying a child, but in all reality, you cannot, because we had to get an attorney through everything as well. You cannot give the biological parents anything. You cannot send them coffee. You cannot help them out any way other than going through your attorney. And so figuring that out was very different than what I expected, because I, for some reason, thought like, hey, I'm going to have to help these biological parents out with getting coffee. I'm going to send them DoorDash. I'm going to make sure like they're comfortable and happy. And when we talked to our attorney, when we were starting this whole process, she was like, no, you can't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
You talk to me and that's it.
Mm-hmm. So people thought, like, when you said people think you're buying children, like, do they mean like kind of like the highest bidder gets to adopt? Is that what they were
Yeah.
referring to?
Mm-hmm.
But it's like a set price, isn't it?
Well, so a lot of times the prices doesn't even go towards the biological parents. It will go towards the attorney fee
Mm-hmm.
and through the agency fees. And then if the biological parents get anything, that's unannounced to me, but that is simply to try to make sure that background checks are ran on our side and on biological parent side, to make sure that there's no scams going on because of how many tests that you have to have done at your house, how many tests that you have to have done within like your own body, because you have to get like go to doctor's appointments and stuff like that to make sure you're happy and like that you're healthy as well. You have to make sure they're healthy. Like it's a whole thing.
Yeah, and what is like how long of a waiting list is it? I know it takes a long time for some people.
It purely is kind of all over the board. So you could get on, because I know a couple who they got on an adoption list after everything was ready to go, and 2 weeks later they got the call that they were picked. And
Oh
I've
my
also
gosh.
heard the opposite, where someone made a profile where they were finally on an adoption list and it took them 2 years,
Mm-hmm.
because it is purely where a biological mother goes through, and typically biological mom and dad, they go through a portfolio similar to, I guess, to just like a book of all these different parents that are waiting for whenever they get chosen, and they choose who they want for their future child. Then they do interviews with these people to make sure that they connect. Sometimes they don't even get to meet, and then sometimes you get to meet them before, sometimes you never hear from them after the child's born. It's kind of all over the place.
So it is, and that's why the government ones that you were talking about before, that's why they were saying like it may never happen because
Mhm.
the biological parents pick.
Yes. You,
What?
as the adoptive parents, you don't get to choose. You can say you have specifications, like if you don't, it sounds horrible, but if you don't want a specific kind of kid, if you are weird about that kind of thing, you can say, I don't want this, that, or the third, which I find crazy, but
I can't believe it doesn't. I'm like thinking as you're speaking, I can't believe it doesn't go just in order.
mm-mm. No, it's the biological parents, because there might be things about a family that they don't want their child being raised in.
Yeah, I know, but I just hate that because it's like I'm sure that I don't know this part, but like I'm
Yeah,
sure that everybody that's in the on the wait list, like you
yeah,
said, they've gone through questioning, and I mean they're not like unfit to have a child, I
yeah.
guess.
They
Like
wouldn't
they're
be on there if there was. Yeah.
because they probably inspect your home, like they
Mhm.
make sure that you're a legit human. And so
Yes.
I don't know, I don't really like that they get to pick, but I guess I don't get a say in that. But I feel
Well,
like
some
it's
people are not okay with their child being raised in an LGBTQ home. That some people are want that. Some people don't want religion to be a part of their world. Some people do. Like there's a whole bunch of different routes of why someone would choose someone. Some could be because of race, that they want their child to be raised in their same like ethnicity, or same culture, which I get.
yeah, I get it, I guess, but at the end of the day, I also know that like the household, like LGBTQ or not, religious or not, like that doesn't mean that they couldn't love your kid. I don't
Yeah.
know. I just wish everyone was just nice and fair and equal. And I hate that it's just not like that. But in my
No.
perfect world, it'd just be all like rainbows and butterflies and happiness. So, but that's not how it always is. And I have to remember that because I get very sad when I think about how unfair, I sound like a kid when I say it's unfair, but it kind of is because some people probably sit on that list forever.
Yeah,
And
they
they'd be
do.
the best,
Sadly,
they'd be
they
the
do.
best freaking parents probably to a child if they
Mhm.
ever got the chance to do it.
Yes, I have a family member who they sat on one for a while, and it actually ended up they didn't get picked from the list. They got picked through private from someone actually that they knew through the grapevine.
Mm-hmm.
And so they actually became parents quicker that way than they did through the list.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so, do they like call and update you monthly, or do they just kind of, you'll just know when you know?
You just get called if you are if you're a possibility, and sometimes the biological parents want an open adoption where they want to get to know you. Sometimes they want zero interaction with you. And
Mm-hmm.
as an adoptive parent, you can also say, like, I want for my child to have X, Y, or Z. You could say, I don't want, and you can, of course, accept something other, but you can say, I want my child to have an open adoption, to know
Mm-hmm.
where they're come from, or to be able to, at 18, be able to reach out, or I don't want them to ever get that.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of also plays into that of like, what are you okay with?
Mm-hmm. And could it be like toddler age, or is it just babies with this agency?
With this agency, it's just babies
Okay.
because typically, if a baby or a toddler is given up, they are sadly, from what I understand, put into foster care.
Okay. That's kind of what I was wondering.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, and I feel like we have the same feeling on the emotional part of the foster care thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's super. I don't know. I just didn't realize that there were different types out there. You know, if anyone listening is wanting to adopt, that, you know, maybe if the state one wherever you live isn't supportive of you or whatever, that there are other options. You just kind of have to do a little digging, a little research to find
Yes.
them, but that they are
And I
legit.
would highly suggest, if you are wanting to look into adoption, to make sure that you dig into people who have been adopted and what their stories sound or look like.
Hmm.
I did a lot of digging prior to us ever getting on a list, and really found that a lot of people really struggle if they have no contact with their biological family or have no idea where they came from. A lot of
Hmm.
times they struggle in life with figuring out who they want to be, and a lot of times it's easier for them, not very easy for adoptive parents, but as a parent, you can't really be selfish sometimes. But it is easier for a child to have so much love and knowing where everybody is and like why their biological parents took this route, what they look like, if they have mannerisms like someone else, as long as it's healthy. Sometimes biological parents are not healthy, and that's a different situation.
Hmm.
But having the option possibly for open adoption, a lot of times, from what my research has told me and a lot of conversations with adoptive people, that is helpful in adoptive lives.
No, I totally can understand that because, like, I don't know, I'm super interested in like my you know, great great grandma and like her mannerisms, and like I find
Yeah.
myself asking questions a lot about those things just because it makes you be like, oh, well, I may not do something exactly like my mom or whatever, but
Yeah.
her great grandma did that exact thing, I heard through other family members. So I think it's really cool, again, just to like connect those pieces. One last question though. If Do you have to adopt in your state? Like, does the agency have to be in your state?
Mm-mm.
No?
No.
Okay.
So actually, this agency is based out of, I believe, New York. But when you are adopting a child, a lot of times the biological parent gets to choose what adoptive laws you go by if they are out of state. So, say we're eventually chosen by a bio parent that's like, say, in California. That parent gets to choose if we go by California law or South Carolina law
Okay.
because of us being stationed here and them being there.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so I feel like I'm just like so fascinated by all this. But if you had any advice to give to anyone, like something that you wish you would have known when all of this first started with you and your wife, like what, hindsight's always 2020, what advice would you have given yourself then that maybe could help someone?
Stop keeping it all inside. Talk to people. A lot of times, And unfortunately, a lot of people don't say the right things when you need to hear it. But having the support and allowing people to know what was fully going on within my brain and within my body made me feel one, a lot less alone, two, a lot less crazy. Because trying to do it alone with just me and my wife made me feel like I was going crazy, and I was not. I'm not the only person going through this. I just was not allowing the people who love me to love me in the way that they can.
Hmm. And I think I always say this too, that once you open up to one person, maybe they haven't gone through it, but someone else has that they know. And then
Yes.
they put you in contact with them. And it's just like,
Mhm.
oh, wow. It just makes you feel, I don't know, more normal, whatever that
Yes.
means.
As normal as humans can be.
Yeah. As normal as we can be in this crazy freaking world that's not sunshine
Yes.
and rainbows and butterflies. But
Even though we want it to be. We want world peace.
we want it so bad. It's like I will die on that hill trying to make it just a bubbly little world, but unfortunately, I don't know that that'll happen. But I'm glad that you were willing to share this, and I know that it's going to again make so many people not feel alone. And we'll put in the description of the episode some like resources for people, and if you can find any of those in your DMs
Yeah.
or whatever and send them over, that would be awesome. But yeah, thank you again for coming on. This was
Well,
great.
thank you for having me. I appreciated it.